Product provided by Nintendo, specifically Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. I've done it, it has finally happened. I have played Xenosaga, and I've beaten a game. Xenosaga Episode I, De Vilzemot, honestly blew me away. I went into this game with managed expectations. I am a massive Xenoblade Chronicles fan. I wanted to find out about a lot of the plot elements that are clearly from Xenosaga that have appeared in Xenoblade. So I went back to play Xenosaga, starting with Episode I and working my way through the franchise. I went in expecting to like the story. I thought I would tolerate the actual gameplay, and I thought it would be a pretty good time overall. What I wasn't expecting was Xenosaga Episode I to become one of my favorite games that I've ever had the pleasure of playing. This game is a gem, it deserves to be brought back, whether that be a port, a remaster, or a remake. I am absolutely now a Xenosaga fanatic, I'm a fan, let's talk about it. Hello everyone, I am Jmulls, and Xenosaga Episode I is a very weird game. There's a lot of design choices in this game that make me go, oh that's so cool, and oh why did they do that though? The story is fascinating, the characters are likable, the game funnily enough has really good pacing in my opinion, and I found the combat to be honestly addictive. It's fun. It's a turn-based combat, however, it utilizes this combo system. Essentially, each turn, you acquire 4 AP. Think of them like action points. You spend 2 AP on an attack. So with your turn, you generate 4 AP, so each turn, you can do minimum of 2 attacks. Square, 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 triangle, triangle, square, or triangle, triangle. But if you find ways to save up AP, whether that be items you can acquire throughout the game, or only using 1 attack each turn, or just guarding, you can enter a turn with 6 AP. That means 3 attacks. And as a general rule of thumb, access to a new type of attack called a tech attack, essentially your big signature abilities. And depending upon the path you take, whether that be square, square, or square, triangle, 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 etc., you will arrive at a tech attack of your choosing that you select before combat in the main menu. You can upgrade them, and even get to a point where you can use a tech attack every turn with the circle button by only requiring one other button to be pressed before having access to the tech attack. There is a lot of customization in this game, and a lot of different ways you can play these characters. Take Shion Uzuki for the prime example here. You can have her be your support, you can have her pretty much be a healer. You can specialize into her tech attack so she can do more damage, or later in the game, forego every other build and just slap a giant freaking mech on her that, while it can only be used once per combat, it hits the damage cap on all of your enemies. Dude, I love Kaiser so much, it's so good. That's just one character. Momo, the resident magical girl, can either be your healer, some kind of mix of roles, big damage like more than you think out of Momo, or you just really lean into the idea that she is a magical girl, give her both of the transformations and the corresponding abilities and tech attacks you can utilize with those transformations. It's a monolith game, and if you're familiar with Xenoblade, you'll understand that there's going to be a lot of menus and a lot of ways to progress your character and get a lot of benefits out of them. Though sometimes it's not always perfectly clear, let's say. But if you're willing to invest the time into actually learning how to play the game and customize these characters, you can get a lot out of it, and I found it to be highly engaging and fun and enjoyable. The game's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I think the UI could use a lot of work overall in terms of actually conveying information more clearly and concisely to the player, especially when it comes to actually upgrading your characters. However, the pros outweigh the cons here. The combat is super fun, and because of the unique input system this game has, or at least unique to me, I haven't played another game like this myself. While it is turn-based, don't get me wrong, that input system adds this level of activity that happens during combat. You're inputting these inputs. You're finding out, oh, is this enemy weak to this type of attack or this type of attack? What kind of tech attack do I want to utilize here? It's a really novel idea, and I quite enjoy the combat system in Xenosaga. This game, in my opinion, is more than just the story. It is interesting boss fights and combat where I kept finding myself coming back for more. People kept telling me that the dungeons in this game were particularly long, and yeah, they are, but I didn't particularly mind because of just how fun the combat was. And because of the nature of the tech attack system, it allows each character to have their own sense of individuality when it comes to expressing themselves in combat. You can utilize whoever you want, but they do have their own specialties. For instance, if I wanted to be a real min-max lord and I'm fighting Gnosis, I would utilize Momo, Cosmos, and Chaos, because they're all pretty good against Gnosis. Momo, if she lands the final hit with a specific tech attack, is able to transform Gnosis themselves, one of the main enemies, into various items. However, if I'm fighting a bunch of machine life forms, well, funnily enough, Momo has a bunch of spells that work on machines. I don't need to use them. I could use Momo against biological enemies, and I have. But it's nice that these characters feel different to one another. This is one of my favorite elements when it comes to turn-based games, and the ones that tend to be my favorite are the ones where I'm able to allow these characters to feel different to each other, and they don't all just boil down to the same gameplay style. The tech attack system itself is really cool, but also just the input system and the AP system that corresponds to that just flows and feels dang good to pull off. On top of all of that, you have ether attacks. Think of them like sci-fi magic abilities. They can be pretty cool, though you don't get that much EP, which is like your MP and mana, in the game. So I tend to find myself using them very sparingly, though a bit more frequently later into the game. The bulk of your time and attention will be on basic attacks and also your tech attacks. But look, this is a game locked to the PS2. Chances are you're not going to have access to actually play the game, though I thought it was important to talk about. This game is more than just its story, it's more than just its music or lack thereof. This is a really solid and fun RPG by itself. The customization is engaging and fun, and the combat itself, you feel rewarded for taking the time to level up these characters and to customize them and to kit them out accordingly. And there's a bunch of really cool synergies you can go down if you so choose. For instance, the game operates on a front row and back row system. If you have a character named Junior in the front row and a female character behind him, you can pop an ability that Junior has that will automatically revive him if he dies. You don't have to utilize it, and I want to stress this, but the game gives you the option. How do you want to strategize? What do you want to prioritize? And the game just lets you. Xenosaga Episode I is a good video game. Now let's talk about the element that I imagine is most intriguing to people nowadays. The story. It's great. The pacing is fundamentally different to, say, Xenoblade, because in Xenoblade, yeah, there is a throughput storyline that is going on there, but generally speaking, each of the games has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Xenosaga is a trilogy of games, once planned to be even more than that, and the cast of characters and the story continues from one game into the next. Xenosaga 2 essentially picks up like 15 minutes after the end of Xenosaga Episode I, and the story in Xenosaga is absolutely fascinating, dude. But my god, is it jam-packed with information and characters and details, and oh my god, can it be a bit confusing at first, even like when you get near the end. There are so many things to keep track of that the game even gives you an in-game glossary, almost like a codex, if you want to just go back and refresh yourself on something, which is quite nice to see. I personally made a Google Doc that I still need to update, just to help me keep track of everything. But I want to stress this. It's fascinating stuff. If you like a game with a lot of lore and a lot of intrigue and a lot of story going on, Xenosaga will appeal to you. There are so many mysteries, so many things that I want to learn about, and this game clearly was foreshadowing a bunch of other things as well, especially things that will get expanded on in all likelihood in Xenosaga 2 and 3. This really does feel like the beginning of a massive adventure. This really does feel like it's part one of a trilogy, or a larger story that is being told here. It is not afraid to introduce concepts or to tease various things, but not feel obligated as if it has to explain every single thing, knowing full well it will get around to that at some point down the line. Now, that is not to say that the game is all introductions. There are various plot threads that have a beginning, a middle, and an end in Xenosaga 1, and I think this lends itself to why I enjoy the pacing of Xenosaga Episode 1 so much. There's so much going on that it has a healthy mix between concepts and ideas that are going to be explored further and later on in the franchise, alongside having plot lines that are fully explored within the confines of Xenosaga Episode 1. Or at least, as of right now, they feel fully explored. I think one of the best plot threads to exemplify what I'm talking about here is a character known as Commander Cherenkov. I think I got that right. He's a character where, to my knowledge, we see his entire storyline here. But when his storyline comes to a conclusion, it relates back to the MC Shion and lays the groundwork for her character development in the future. But when it comes to that guy, we get an interesting beginning, middle, and end to that character with plenty of character development that puts that character Shion in a prime position to be explored on and developed later in the future. I think one of the best elements of Xenosaga that I never really heard talked about all that much before I started to stream it, on both my YouTube and with Episode 2 also on my Twitch, link in the description down below, the game feels like you're playing an anime. That is a phrase that gets overused a lot in the gaming industry, right? However, it's the presentation and the frequency of cutscenes in Xenosaga Episode I in particular, where the game is able to maintain a consistent aesthetic throughout regular gameplay to regular cutscenes to then cinematics in the game. They have a consistent art style, and when you're doing the story, there's a good frequency of them to where it really does kind of give off the feel that you're playing through an anime. There are emotional moments, there are slow moments, there are moments that make you go, oh hell yeah dude, I'm so glad that happened. Look how cool this is. Freaking Cosmos slapping a dude in the next freaking century. Cosmos wiping out half a solar system's worth of freaking space alien Gnosis guys. Cosmos shooting through a guy just to kill another Gnosis. You know, a lot of these cool scenes have Cosmos in them. She is the professional aura farmer of Xenoblade and Xenosaga, let's be fair here. The game just has a really good presentation overall. Yeah, and the voice acting does sound as if it came from the early 2000s, right? I would still say it's good. And I enjoy the characters. I enjoy what's going on. When it comes to the actual main story, I don't really have much to complain about. The story early on really builds up this idea that you're going to go to Old Milsha to locate the Zohar. Like, that's going to be the main objective, right? And you don't get there in Xenosaga 1 because that is an element of the story that's going to be explored further in the later games. It's just early on, they do kind of make it seem as if it's going to be a bit of a more immediate thing. And when it dawns on you, at least for me, that that's not what this singular game's going to be about, I just have this moment where I'm going, oh, okay, well that was going to be really cool, but what are we doing now instead? I just had to reconfigure what I thought the internal pacing for this game was going to be. But like I said, I am fully invested in what's going on here, and I'm fully on board. This story is really good. The characters are really compelling. The gameplay is super fun and enjoyable. I want to know more, I want to find out more, I want to rewatch a lot of these cutscenes to make sure that I gleaned every detail from them. It can be a little bit rough around the edges sometimes, but the game overall is still really cool and fun and gives you a bunch of different activities you can go and do if you really want to. The game has a card game. It even has like a mech brawler you can do, a drill mini game which I became addicted to, but that is not to say the game is without its faults. The game has an email system in-game that a majority of its side content makes use of. However, some of that side content can be weirdly precise with where you need to stand in order to actually acquire an email, and it's not really conveyed to the player at all, so it's easy to miss out on a bunch of things. I think I missed out on a Cosmos weapon simply because I didn't stand in the exact right place at a particular point in the story. So later down the line, after I beat Saga 2 and 3, I'm gonna have to come back to Saga 1, and I'm gonna replay the series and get all the things that I missed. And I don't particularly mind doing that because the game is so enjoyable. The writing is supremely competent and good. I would say the music is good, but for giant swaths of it, there's just no music because they really wanted to lean into the idea that space is silent. My recommendation would be to just have that be an option if you do a remake or a remaster or a port, but also just have regular background music for the dungeons, because going through multiple hour-long dungeons without music, if I wasn't streaming it, I would have just thrown music on my second monitor. Maybe some people enjoy it. I would argue keep it as an option. Personally speaking, I don't think that idea of immersion necessarily hits the mark, especially when the rest of the music is really nice. Especially the last two songs, Pain and Kokoro. They are two of my favorite songs in all of Xenoblade. And Xeno, just like overall, those lyric songs, whenever Monolith does them, they knock them out of the park. So dang good. And the ending is absolute dang near perfection. I was borderline yelling cinema the entire time on stream. It was so dang good. And if you play Xenoblade, there are so many things they just took from Saga, it's insane. It's actually kind of funny. Not in a bad way, like, I see what you were doing, Monolith. Clever. And you know what? Viewing Xenosaga Episode I through that perspective of having played all the Xenoblade games first, and then coming back to see where a lot of Xenoblade got its inspiration from, and I hear Saga got its inspiration from Gears as well, but like playing Saga after playing Blade, you notice and pick up on a lot of things, or at least I did, and I think that enhanced my experience. It made me go, oh dude, I recognize this. Oh, I see what they're doing here. Oh dude, this is like that. There's so many things. I just really like the game. This video is largely just to convey my immediate thoughts after beating Xenosaga 1, even though it's been a couple of days. But the more that I think on this game, the more I just appreciate and love it. In a lot of stories, I feel that an obvious pitfall that a lot of narratives fall into is the idea that everything has to revolve around the protagonist. You can still tell a good story like that, however, when you're trying to build and flesh out a world, it can leave it feeling a little bit hollow and one-dimensional, even when sometimes you don't actively pick up on that feeling. If everything revolves around a single person, it doesn't feel like a three-dimensional world with a bunch of interactive pieces moving about the board. But that's not the case here in Xenosaga 1. Because yeah, you start with Shion and Cosmos, but as you add new characters to your party, like Momo, like Ziggy, alright, less so on Ziggy, but also characters like Junior, they have massive, important roles here, and throughout various sections, kind of feel like the main characters, even if they technically aren't, or at least the protagonist. It's a party where at least most of them feel as if they're equally important to each other. Now, we didn't get that much development of, say, Ziggy and especially Chaos in this game, but that's stuff that I imagine comes down the line. Heck, I know there's an entire spin-off essentially just for Ziggy. In a lot of ways, I think Xenosaga is a thinking man's game. If you want to experience this and just, like, have the most surface-level experience you can possibly have with a game and a story, you can have still an enjoyable time with Xenosaga. But I think the true beauty and where Xenosaga in particular has so much staying power is the more that you think on it, the more that you digest it. If you're willing to go back and rewatch cutscenes to make sure you pick up on every little detail, and you start to see how all the pieces on the board move at the same time with each other, there's a lot to really appreciate about what's going on here. And it makes me firmly excited for what comes next. But also severely disappointed because I'm like, dude, I need more than just 2 more games for this. I can tell that already just with the first game. But there was also one other feeling that I had personally as someone who played Xenoblade and studied those games extensively. I'd always heard that there were a bunch of Xenosaga references in Xenoblade, and that absolutely picked up recently with Future Redeemed and Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. Absolutely. I didn't realize they were that blatant. The ending is almost identical to Xenoblade 2. In a good way. There's enough differences to make it feel unique. Pain is a brilliant song, but it's a very similar structure. And I love how both Xenosaga 1 and Xenoblade 2 are able to take that rough flowchart of events and make it their own. But on top of that, the thing that I couldn't stop thinking throughout playing Xenosaga is, oh my god, this is just supposed to be taken as canonical to Blade. I thought it was just going to be a nice bunch of references and stuff like that. And like, oh, how can this be canonical to Saga because of this and this? And then just Xenosaga 1 just addresses it. It's like one of the biggest elements for me were people comparing the Gnosis, the big monster enemies in Xenosaga, to the ghosts from Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. And I'm like, well, yeah, I could see some similarities. They might be a nice little reference. But, you know, aesthetically, there's still a lot different between the two. Then I played Xenosaga, and I'm like, oh, all those discrepancies are just addressed in Xenosaga Episode I. Like, weirdly early on as well, within the first 20 hours. The beach with Lao and Al from Chapter 13 in X Definitive Edition is just a location from Saga. It even has similar, like, narrative framing, if not identical. Near the end, the imagery with all the feathers. Seemingly every character in Saga 1 has an attack that utilizes those exact same feathers. I know, right? That later on, there'll be even more stuff. Again, I'm fully invested here. And as someone who loves to theorycraft about Xenoblade and to think about Xenoblade, the fact that these games, even if they can't technically by law be canon, or at least, like, Monolith can't exactly say it because Bandai Namco owns the Xenosaga IP. When you look at the actual narrative going on, when you look at the exact events, heck, even the freaking timeline, and a lot of the imagery, they kind of want you to view it as canon. And you know what? I love it. It's so fascinating to me. And it gets me thinking, and it makes me want to play more. And with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe. Have a great day. We're going to be continuing the Xenosaga journey. We're going to be playing Xenosaga 2 on this YouTube channel, on my Twitch, in the description down below. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on TikTok to join this little journey of ours. Or should I say saga? Leave a comment down below with if you have played Xenosaga, how did you like it? And if you haven't, would you like to see this game brought back in the modern day with modern ports, a remaster, or a remake? Let's try and get #free Xenosaga to be a bit of a thing, shall we? Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye everybody, until we meet again.